Hey everyone, I'm Kirsten Amanda, and today I'm going to be walking you through basic color theory. So in this video, I'm going to be walking you through primary colors, secondary colors, intermediaries, and tertiary colors. I'm going to put that all on a color wheel, and then I'm also going to show you how you can mix together certain colors in order to get the color that you want. I will be using complementary colors to show how you can dull down the intensity of a color, which is something that I do in my artwork a lot. And I found that it's really helped me with my art, and understanding these concepts really goes a long way. In this video, I will also be diving into the characteristics of watercolors. So this is things like granulating versus non-granulating colors, staining versus non-staining colors, as well as transparent versus opaque watercolors. So learning a bit about this has really helped me when painting and knowing what order to do things and what's gonna look best. So I thought I would share that with you all, and I hope you get something out of this video. And without further ado, let's get started. So first off, we need to understand the color wheel. Color wheels vary depending on the source, but I've found in my experience that working with this 18-section triadic color wheel is the easiest to understand. You could potentially bump this up to 24 sections, but let's be honest, none of us want to feel overwhelmed when we're getting started understanding color. On the flip side, you could also simplify this to 6 or 12 sections, but I'll show you that as we go through the video. The easiest way to get started with creating or understanding a color wheel is to start with the 3 primary colors. The primary colors are yellow, red, and blue, which are colors that cannot be created by mixing any other colors. We must have the 3 primaries to create any of the other colors. When you place the 3 primary colors on the color wheel, they should be able to create a triangle. So as you can see, if I mark a line from yellow to red, red to blue, and blue to yellow, it would create a triangle or a triad of colors. So secondary colors are those that are created by mixing any 2 of the primary colors. As you can see, yellow and blue mixed together make green, blue and red mixed together make purple, and red and yellow mixed together make orange. We can properly place these onto the color wheel by making sure they're in the middle of the 2 primary colors. So as you can see, I have yellow, blue, and then green in the middle. I have blue, red, and then purple in the middle, and then I have red, yellow, and orange in the middle. This is basically to say that if you mix together 50% red and 50% yellow, you will get orange. If you mix together 50% yellow and 50% blue, you will get green, and so on and so forth. When you place the secondary colors on the color wheel, they will also create a triad or a triangle. So as you can see, orange to green, green to purple, and purple back to orange will create an upside down triangle. So this is why we call this a colored triad, because you have the primaries and then you have the secondaries. So as you can see, I have an example of a 6-section color wheel. This is just the primaries and secondaries. So you have yellow, blue, and red or magenta, and here's your triangle. And then you have blue and yellow, that makes green. You have yellow and red, that makes orange. And you have red and blue, that makes purple. Color wheels vary depending on the source, like I said. So as you can see in this example, they've used magenta. This isn't, to me, a true purple, so this is why I've created my own color wheel. I just find it a lot easier to understand it this way, so that's why I'll be using this throughout this video. Intermediate colors are sometimes referred to as tertiary colors, but for the purpose of this color wheel, it's easier to understand these as intermediate colors. Intermediate colors are the colors that are created by mixing together a secondary color and a primary color. So if I mix together blue and green, I will get blue-green colors. So again, if I take a look at this 12-section color wheel, you'll see that they've only added 1 intermediary color by mixing 50% green and 50% blue, and then you get your blue-green color. What I've done here is I've mixed 75% blue and 25% green, and I've lent this more towards the blue side as it has a larger amount of blue, and then I've done the same with the green blue. I've done 75% green and 25% blue, and then that lends itself more towards the green side. So again, earlier when I was talking about how we can make a 24 section color wheel, you could actually probably add this 50% green, 50% blue mixture right in between here, and you'd have yet another color in between. But I like to do it this way just to see all the different color variations. It just gives a little bit more than this 12 section, but it doesn't overwhelm like the 24 section would. So as you can see, I have finished off my color wheels by adding intermediary colors in between the primary and secondary colors. So the definition of complementary colors are any pair of contrasting colors that when mixed in the right proportions cancel each other out or lose hue by producing a neutral grayscale color. So complementary colors are opposite to each other on the color wheel. The three main combinations of complementary colors are purple and yellow, red and green, and orange and blue. In any complementary color, you end up having all three primary colors, and this is why they cancel each other out. So for example, when you have yellow mixed with purple, your purple is actually a secondary color, so there's a mixture of both red and blue. So you mix together purple, you're actually mixing two primary colors in with another primary color, and then you're mixing all three primary colors. And that's why they cancel each other out. If you mixed red, blue, and yellow together, they would also cancel each other out. Complementary colors are not given this name for no reason. These colors complement each other and are pleasant on the eye. Complementary colors feel balanced due to the stimulation of different parts of the eye, but that is some science that we are not getting into in this video. Complementary colors can be used to create a grayscale color, which can be helpful when painting with a limited palette. I also use complementary colors to dull down or desaturate a color. So I'm just going to demonstrate quickly how I use complementary colors to do this. So as you can see, I have a couple of flowers in front of me, and on the left, I'm just going to use a pure orange mixture to fill it in. So as you can see, we have a pretty bright orange flower on the left. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of orange's complementary color, which is blue, and I'm just going to use that to dull down the color a little bit. As you can see, if I mix this, but way too much blue there. As you can see, it's starting to dull down that color of orange. Just make sure that your ratio has more orange than blue. Otherwise, like I said, you will completely lose the hue of your complementary color. But now, when I use this color to paint in the flower on the right, with a bit of that blue added, you will see I'll get a much softer orange color. So let me fill this flower in the right. So just zooming in here, you can see how bright this color of orange is and how dull this color of orange is. So I like to use complementary colors when I'm creating different colors to make maybe like a vintage color, or if I don't want it to be as bright, or just to add some color variation. So I'm going to do the same thing with yellow with purple. So if I just use a pure yellow color, you can see how bright yellow this is. And then when I add a little bit of purple to the yellow, and again, just a touch, if you add too much, you're going to completely lose the color altogether, because mixing the complementary colors will cause just a grayscale color. So just by adding a touch of purple into this mixture, you're going to see that I get a dulled down version of that yellow. And I'll do the same thing with green because I like to do this to my leaves a lot in my paintings. So if I take just a pure mixture of sap green, you can see it's very, very bright. And then I'm just going to add a touch of red to that. And you can see that's really dulled down the color of green coming out. If I add even more red to that, I'm just going to end up getting this really nice green color here. So that's how I mix complementary colors together to get different variations of a certain color. This is a really easy way to get a more muted color palette. Tertiary colors are created by mixing the three primary colors together or by mixing any combination of primary and secondary color. This is why they can also be referred to as intermediary colors. It makes more sense to me to try and separate the intermediary colors from the tertiary colors, as I see intermediary colors as combining primary and a secondary color to create a more bright color mixture. Then I can separate my tertiaries into more of the earth tones, browns, grays, and blacks. So as you can see, if you mix red, blue, and yellow together, you will get a brown color. Mixing the complementary colors together as well will get you this hue, as I was showing before, of some sort of brown or gray, and this is due to there being all three primary colors in each set of secondary color. Many of the colors you see on the market are tertiary colors, as they have been pre-mixed using many of the primary colors. So as you can see, burnt sienna, Van Dyke brown, Payne's gray, yellow ochre, burnt umber, quinacridone gold. These are all tertiary colors and have been mixed before getting put in the tube or the pan using a combination of colors. So that is what makes these tertiary colors as well. So as you can see, I've kind of separated tertiaries into the earth tones, the hues of grays, browns, and then up here on the color wheel, all of the intermediary colors are just the colors that are created by combining a primary and a secondary color. So I hope that makes sense for you. It really makes sense for me to look at intermediaries as separate from tertiary colors. So warm and cool colors are not easily defined. In a basic approach, we can say that warm colors are the reds, the oranges, the yellows. I like to think of these as the fire colors, but unfortunately, it's not always that simple. You can most definitely have both cool and warm tones of each individual color. For example, you can see that this green looks much warmer than this green. Although green in itself is considered a cool color, you can see that by mixing yellow into green, it looks a lot warmer than mixing blue into green. And this would be because yellow is considered a warm color. So when you mix that into green, which in itself is a cool color, it creates a warmer color. And then you have blue, which is a cool color, and you mix that into green and it cools it off quite a bit. The same goes for red, which in itself is a warm color, but when you mix some purple into it, it creates this sort of magenta color, which looks a lot cooler. This is just the way I like to look at things in order for it to make sense to me. Like I said, there is so much more to this and probably a million different opinions on how it should be, such as the color wheel, but we need to understand it in a way that makes sense to us as an individual to use all the information as a tool in creating our art. Color temperature is important when painting to create contrast and balance. So being intentional with warm and cool colors will help you portray your artwork in the way you have intended it. So color value is the lightness or darkness of a color. I've tried my best to demonstrate color value on the color wheel. As you can see, the darkest color is towards the outer edge, and then they get lighter as they go towards the center. So you can see these middle colors are lighter in value and they get a little bit brighter. There's more of the white of the page showing through them. They're very watered down. So let me demonstrate this with Winsor Blue. The best way to create color value with watercolor specifically is to use less water if you'd like a darker value and more water if you'd like a lighter value. So let's start with less water. I just have a bit of a damp brush here and I'm grabbing some Winsor Blue. And I'm just going to use this triangle to demonstrate how we can go from the darkest color value to the lightest. So there's the darkest color value. And then I'm just going to rinse out my brush. And using a bit of water from the brush, I'm going to lighten up this value of color and come in next to it with a lighter value. And as you can see, it's getting lighter, and I'm going to do that again, this time just using what's left on the brush to create an even lighter value. And then here at the end, we're going to rinse out our brush all together and just take a tiny bit of that blue with a bit of water, and you'll get the lightest color value. So as you can see, we have the darkest value all the way to the lightest value. So this is how you get color value. This is important when painting so that you can use lighter values to create the illusion of highlights and darker values to create the illusion of shadow. So now that we have an understanding of the different colors and the color wheel, we can move on to some other aspects of watercolors. Granulation has to do with the paint pigments themselves. If a pigment has granulation, it will cause the particles in the paint to clump together and dry unevenly, almost like it settles in certain areas of the paper. This can be annoying when you want to create a smooth wash of color. No matter how you put the paint on, it will always be uneven. This can be useful when painting certain subjects such as rocks or sand or anything with a grainy texture, but when you want to create a silky petal on a flower, it can impact the outcome. So again, being intentional with which colors you choose for which particular subject you are painting based on this is very important. As you can see here, I have shown an example of granulation in the color yellow ochre. You can really see how this settles into spots on the paper and leaves an uneven finish. This is great for this earthy color in some cases, but if you want to paint a yellow flower in this color, it's probably not the best option. As you can see here, Aurelian yellow does not granulate, and it will allow you to get a really nice smooth finish. I typically use Professional Series Winsor & Newton watercolors, and they have an amazing color chart that you can easily locate the characteristics of each color, including whether it has granulation or not. Other watercolor suppliers may have something similar, or it will show right on the tube itself. Another important characteristic of watercolor paints is whether your paint is translucent or opaque. This is good to understand when layering watercolors. Again, using the supplier's color chart to identify which colors are translucent and which are opaque will really help. Opaque watercolors tend to be muddy and they let very little light in, which can make them less appealing for layering. Transparent watercolors mix well and they allow for other colors to show through, which makes them more appealing for layering. I've done a quick example here of showing the difference between 2 layers of opaque watercolors and 2 layers of transparent watercolors. As you can see, when I've layered 2 layers of alizarin crimson, which is a translucent color, you can really see through it, and the first layer lets a lot of light through from the paper. Over on the right, I've done 2 layers of cadmium red, which is an opaque color, and as you can see, there's less light coming through, and the second layer is covering the first layer a little bit more. So when you're layering with watercolor, this is something to keep in mind. Below, I've done an example of 2 layers of translucent colors, alizarin crimson and Aurelian yellow. Again, you can really see the pink layer through the yellow layer as you're layering. But on the right, I've used 2 opaque colors, cadmium red and cadmium yellow, and you can see that it looks a lot less transparent and see-through between layers. I will also note that alizarin crimson are non-granulating colors, and you can see how smooth the layers are, whereas cadmium red is a granulating color, and you can really see how the watercolor has settled into areas, especially around this outer perimeter. Be sure to think ahead about what you're painting and what you want the end result to be when selecting colors. The last thing I'm going to talk about today is staining versus non-staining watercolors. Non-staining watercolors sit on top of the paper and can be removed much easier than staining colors. Once your paint is dry, you can easily reactivate the paint with water and scrub it out with a brush. Something to keep in mind with non-staining colors is that when layering colors on top of them, it may be easy to move the color around as the paint becomes reactivated, so you may run the risk of moving color around that you don't want to. This is why I find it useful to use a staining color as my first wash where I can, so that as I layer paints on top of everything, it stays in place. With staining watercolors, once the paint is dry, you will not be able to lift or remove the paint, so again, something to keep in mind. So I really hope you learned something from this video on my quick demonstration of color theory and the characteristics of watercolors. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments down below. And if you liked this video and want to see more like this, please be sure to like this video and subscribe. It really helps out my channel. And as always, thanks for watching. I will catch you in my next video.